God.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I've had videos where I had free. Like, here's the thing, okay? I don't monetize any of my videos because I use copyrighted music. So I've had videos, and I don't have. To be honest with you, I don't have enough views or subscribers for me to monetize my videos. But even if I did, I wouldn't monetize my videos because this is a hobby. This is not my job. Okay, I'm not in this for the money or exposure. I just like making videos about, and I just like having a podcast about video games and pop culture.
And let me guess, you get monetized hit with, as in somebody takes money out.
Well, I've had people do copyright claims on my videos, and I'm like, really? No, this isn't now. This was like when I first started my channel. I got a copyright claim for a video for Castlevania where I did my Let's Play of Super Castlevania 4. I got a copyright claim, but not from Konami. Not from Konami.
It was from nobody.
From someone I never fucking heard of. I was like, what the fuck is this? You never know. But with that being said,
this game looks kind of boring.
Well, here's what I was gonna say. Before we go any further, let's have everyone introduce themselves. Starting with the lady first. Lady, introduce yourself, please.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages. Welcome to the Beat Podcast. I am Joe Moonstar, and oh god, it's a 2-for-1.
Yeah, there's some bullshit out tonight. Lots and lots of bullshit.
I mean, highly fresh BS, no less.
Yeah, literally, the cow just walked past us and lifted its tail, and the pat came down and hit the ground. And I was like, oh my goodness, there was no cow patty there before, but I turned my head and the cow patty's there. It was insane. The gentleman, will he introduce himself?
This is Kanoshi Abominito, here to say they're remaking the first Alex Kidd game.
Yeah.
And, who the heck was asking for that? And it looks kind of boring.
Well, I'm going to let you in a little secret. Alex Kidd has always been boring.
And like Alex Kidd never had any boss fights in one of its games.
Well, it did in the first game. It had boss fights. It's just the boss fight wasn't, like Sonic the Hedgehog. You hit Dr. Robotnik 4 times. No. Mario, you bounce on a dude's head 3 times. No. You know how you fight bosses in the first Alex Kidd? You play Jajin Ken, which is basically rock paper scissors.
John Ken Paul.
Yeah. Because when you think of an epic boss fight to save the world, you think rock paper scissors.
The only time I would think that would ever be true is in something like Yu-Gi-Oh!
No, even Yu-Gi-Oh! I'd be like seriously, if Yu-Gi-Oh! Was real, and someone's like, the fate of the world depends on this. So we're going to use these cards, because we've spent the last 6 years collecting all these cards and monsters. No, rock, paper, scissors. Oh, fuck this. I'm out.
But there's certain cards that force you to play that game.
I know there's like a card that you have to flip a coin, head or tails. I know, but I mean, it's just it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I guess I should introduce myself. Yeah, I guess I should introduce myself. It's me, Mr. Red Fox, owner proprietor of BS Busters. To get in touch with the cast via Gmail, you can reach me at mrredfoxbsbuster@gmail.com or at Twitter at Matthew Wesley at Mr. Red Fox 91, or you can link to the Discord. It's in the description. I don't have it off the top of my head, unfortunately. But without much ado, this is BS Busters, where this is a no bullshit zone. We try to cut through as much bullshit as possible, but sometimes, occasionally, the stars will align. All of the planets will line up perfectly, and a perfect cow patty will come and land on the ground right in front of us. For example, we saw today, like literally, I saw that Sega was remaking Alex Kidd. Now,
Oh,
to be fair, no one was asking for a remake of Alex Kidd.
in fact, in fact, in fact, I think I suggested, or rather, we in turn
Hey guys, I'll be right back. I just got a
idea
phone
of
call.
talking about
All right.
top 10 characters without that could be before his day.
Yeah, and before I get into my list of top 10 characters that should have been rebooted before Alex Kidd, I'm going to tell you what it's like for Sega to announce Alex Kidd, a character that no one was asking for, a remake of the original Alex Kidd. It's like you being with your significant other or spouse, and they say, we want to spice up our sex life. And you're thinking, oh, so we're going to have like a fantasy night or sex toys or something like that. No,
And their
no.
idea,
We're going to make the cat sit in the corner and look at us have sex. It's like no one was asking for that. Why would you do that? Like that doesn't even sound interesting.
and even the cat would not be interested in.
Yeah, the cat's like, why are you doing this to me? I just want to shred the toilet paper roll. That's all I want to do. Maybe catch an innocent animal in the backyard and bring it inside. Why would you do this? That's basically what Sega did. They gave us something that no one was asking for. Literally no one. Like, no one was like, you know what? Like, even the most hardcore Sega fan is not like, you know what? I got a hankering for what? Alex Kidd. No? Not really, no.
I mean, the first Alex Kidd had the weakest of boss battles that you ever have.
Well, it had boss battles, but you resolved them not through clever platforming or attacks. No, you just rock, paper, scissors.
Or for some people that are international, John Ken Bo.
Yeah. Just rock beats somethers, which beats paper, which beats rock. You know, a weapons triangle, if you will. This is some sad stuff right here. This is what we got going on, folks. This is where we are right now. So basically, here are my 10.
There's a list of characters that can beat Alex Kidd in popularity of fake.
Yeah. Literally, I could think of, I could do off the top of my head. Here are 5 Sega characters that could have been revived before Alex Kidd. Dynamite Headdy. Ristar. Vector Man.
Oh yes, Vector Man.
The characters from Gunstar Heroes, do a proper Gunstar Heroes 2. Kid Chameleon. That's 5 right there. Let's look at Nintendo. Arrow the Acrobat. That's a character you could bring back. Earthworm Jim. That's a character you could bring back. Bonk. That's a character you could bring back. Zero the kamikaze squirrel. That's another character you could bring back. We need another mascot type character that just didn't get their due. Hell, I would even take that damn possum. I forget whose name. The one who
Awesome
kicks.
Possum.
Yeah, the awesome possum who kicks. No, I would take Rocket. What's his name? The Rocket Knight. Shit, I forgot his name.
Sparkster, the Rocket.
Yeah, I'd even take Sparkster. And I know Konami tried to bring that shit back with that 2.5D platforming back in the 7th gen, and it sucked. But I'd even take another stab at that before Alex Kidd. No one was asking for this. Literally no one. No one.
Anything. I remember that character. I remember Kid can even go with you on Bonk.
Yeah,
Alex Kidd?
yeah. Like, let me put it this way: Alex Kidd is the mascot that Sega basically threw away. That even the Sega fans threw away for Sonic the Hedgehog and never looked back. Okay, like no one was asking for this. No one was like, yeah, man, we need another Alex Kidd. Nobody.
I was gonna make an interesting comment.
Go ahead.
Sega is looking at right now. I think Alex Kidd got off easy,
Well, no, you know what happened.
especially if you look at Sonic.
The reason Sega did this is because Streets of Rage 4, which people had been asking for, came out, and I guess it sold well, right? So they're like, well, shit. People want our old IPs. Of course, people want your old IPs, but only what they're asking for. People want another Golden Axe. People wanted another Streets of Rage. These are things that people wanted. No one wants another Alex Kidd, bro.
Unless you're trying to reboot it from the ground up, nobody wants it.
Yeah. Oh well. So Alex Kidd is being rebooted. It's coming back. I don't know why. I don't know why or how or wherefore to out there. I don't know. I don't know why or how or anything like that, but they're bringing it back. They're bringing back Alex Kidd for reasons that I don't know or care about. So my question to you, the viewers, are: would you play another Alex Kidd, and did you want another Alex Kidd? You can answer that in the chat section if you get a chance. I guess we can move on to some of these other news stories.
I was gonna say the DMCA riots going on with Twitch.
Well, we can get started right now. This is now only Twitch. So I would have shown a video of the Alex Kidd trailer, but unfortunately, it's been DMCA'd by IGN, which is weird because Alex Kidd as an IP is owned by Sega, and another developer is working on this game. It has nothing to do with IGN, but IGN has a DMCA on the shit, so I mean,
Which is weird as F.
yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. It's just not. It's not good. So
Live, which
I don't know. But let's keep it moving. All right. So what are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on all this DMCA shit going down?
Well, heaping mess.
Yeah, it's bad, all right.
And remember, I actually kept from swearing for that. It's such a BS role that it's getting out of control. Some of these are about 2 years old.
Yeah, they're all basically trying. I mean, like, here's the thing, okay? I understand that this is these people's content and they want to be able to control it and all that shit. But they're people who have nothing to do with this content basically trying to control it.
Yeah, that just sums up this problem.
So, I mean, I don't know where to go from there. I don't know what's happening. It's very interesting. Hopefully they can sort this stuff out, but probably not.
One can only hope.
Yeah. So here's some more news. Stadia news.
Getting the balls again.
Stadia. You know that song by the Young Gunners, Can't Stop, Won't Stop. Can't Stop, Won't Stop. It's a really good song by the Young Gunners. I personally like it a lot. It's from like the late 90s, early 2000s. But basically, Stadia. Google Stadia can't stop, won't stop fucking up. That's right, young gunners. Can't stop, won't stop.
As much as I'm gonna have to say, man, I knew Stadia was, but God, I never thought I'd be feeling so much that at news constantly.
Like, I thought, okay, when Stadia first came out, I was hopeful that if they got the launch at least somewhat good, it would have at least, you know, it would have the launch, if the launch had been just somewhat, I thought, okay, well, Google's gonna launch at least somewhat competently. But literally, it's like Google looked at all the fucked up launches that other consoles have had, because Google was treating this like a console launch, and they said, "Oh no, we can do better in fucking up than you guys can."
I was about to say, Epic is going for the biggest fan. Stadia said, "Hold my beer."
Yeah, they were like, like Stadia. Google with Stadia is like Google is like a dude who is like an Olympian who just saw someone in front of them fail miserably. I mean, absolutely miserably. Like they tried to do the long jump, and they literally they jumped in the air, and when they landed, they did a full split, and you could see them, their balls were just obliterated. Okay, and Google's like, I can do worse than that.
Oh no!
Like that's basically what Google has done, is that they literally, like, okay, let me put this on. One of the most disastrous console launches I've ever seen in the modern age of gaming was the Xbox One. That was really bad. Like, people like to say that the Wii U was bad. No. The Wii U was not a bad console launch. It was baffling. It wasn't well defined, but you knew, they generally, the idea of what it was, oh, it's a console that has a gamepad so you can take your game and play in other places. It wasn't clear defined, but I mean, I got it. Literally, Google, like every way that you could F up bringing out Stadia, they did. Okay?
I was gonna say, Stadia failed so badly that they go in points of failure.
Okay? Google went up their own ass and how much they fucked up this game, this launch of this product. But in order to define how bad this launch is, okay, right now there are AAA games that you can get on Stadia, okay, that are like 2-3 months old, okay, in some cases 6 months old, okay. They are $60 on Stadia. You can get them in other places, on PC, on consoles.
$5?
No, they're not that low, but literally you're looking at 50, 60, 70% off. I'll give an example, okay? You can get let's see, what's a game on? You can get Borderlands 3 on Stadia, I believe. The base game. Now, the base game of Borderlands 3 on every other platform, if you look around, now, if you're probably just getting it off the storefront, it's probably not going to be inexpensive. But if you shop around, you're probably going to pay between $35 and $45. Just basic discount. Okay? Stadia, it's like $60. If you want all the DLC, like all the extra shit, you're looking at like $89, $90. And here's the worst thing. One of the biggest games of this year, biggest third-party games this year, is Cyberpunk 2077. I pre-ordered mine. Off of Amazon. I would have gotten the physical disc, but I don't have a CD player, a CD drive on my new PC. Everything's digital, so I had to just say fuck it and get the PC code for it. But I already paid for my PC code, so once the PC codes are released, I can pre-download it on Steam or GOG or wherever, and I'm good. I can just, it's already there, and then when it unlocks, go play my game. Stadia shit, even if you wanted to play it on Stadia, you're not going to get it for a little bit after it comes out.
I was about to say, you probably are getting it October at the
Well, from what I've seen, it will launch later the same year. So I'm thinking about 2 or 3 months afterwards. So right off the bat, they're already messing up. Okay, Mr. Roboto says, I was born in 93. Alex Kidd was a little before my time. I'd be willing to try it, whether it's a new game or the original. Well, Mr. Roboto, that's, okay, you know, man, go ahead. Look, man, take a chance. I was born in 86, and I remember when Alex Kidd came out. I remember going to my friend's house and playing that game and being I mean, I cut my eye teeth on Super Mario World, and Super Mario Brothers, and Super Mario World. So, I mean, you could say that Mario's the king of platformers. So for me, Alex Kidd's just nah. I was never impressed by it. But hey, you know, if they can make this mascot interesting for people, kudos to them. I don't think it's gonna work, but whatever. Keeping it moving. So, you know, so do you think Stadia can, at the rate Stadia is going, I don't think they're gonna make it to the end of this year.
If they can survive 3 years, that'll be a but it at least said that they tried.
You know, and here's the thing. I'm not one of those people who's saying that cloud-based gaming is not going to work or is useless, because there's 2 other services that are using cloud-based gaming that are actually doing okay, like NVIDIA's GeForce Now and Microsoft's xCloud. So it's not that cloud-based gaming doesn't work. It's just Google basically literally... I mean, it's like watching a Tom and Jerry cartoon where Tom keeps on stepping on rakes and hitting himself in the face. That's Google right now.
I say those 2 are supplements. The Stadia is the alternative, as in it's trying to be the console.
Yeah, I don't think the way cloud gaming is right now, even with the ones that work, it's going to be your main thing. But I think within the next 5 or 10 years, they'll probably get the connection and the infrastructure up to the point where you'll be able, if someone's like, I don't want to spend $500 on a new console. I'd rather spend $100 a year and just have access to this library of games. I think within the next 5 or 10 years, that'll be where a lot of people will go. Do I think consoles will go the way of the dodo? No. But I do think that you will begin to see a lot of people, that's what they'll do. They'll just, be a lot of cloud gaming. Which, I mean, I'm not one of those people, how dare they have cloud gaming? If the shit works and the price is right, the more people who are in gaming, the more populous it is, the better it is for all gamers. But
I really go against it because, if anything, it's the one thing that's probably is missing that you probably are forgetting or ever ignoring.
What, infrastructure?
How much internet speed that
Oh, no, I mentioned infrastructure. I said once they get the infrastructure up to where it's more stable and it becomes viable for cloud-based gaming to work, I'm not going to get mad if people have that. As it is right now, you're right. It's a supplement. It's like, I have my home console, but I want to go to another part of my house that maybe has that maybe I don't want to lug my console to, but I have good internet connection there, so I can just play my game like that. I'm here's the thing. If that's how people want to play their games, if they want to spend that money to play those games, but here's the problem with cloud-based gaming, right? Google's well, these people don't want to buy a home console. But here's the thing. In order for you to have the internet, in order for you to play cloud-based gaming, you have to have internet that right now is you're spending around $100 like around between 75 and 100 and over $100 a month for your internet. Like you have to have either top of the line broadband or top of the line fiber optic. Like you're like 10.
And unlimited.
Yeah, and you can't have a data cap.
Yeah.
Yeah, like me, I have a hybrid connection where part of it's fiber optic, part of it's broadband. But overall, and I have a unlimited data cap, and I spend about 85 a month. And it's still not the best, but it's pretty good. It's like one tier below the top of the line. And I'm still like, there's certain things I can't really do unless I get a new router. Like a router for streaming and gaming and shit like that. But my point is this, I mean, that's what we're dealing with here, folks. And, Google's just been messing up repeatedly. I mean, just repeatedly. And, I mean, it's kind of sad because, if this was a company that had never utilized this technology or wasn't a tech company, I'd say like, well, they tried, they failed. Google has so much money they can afford to fuck up, and they've just been fucking up repeatedly.
Google and Microsoft are nearly one and the same, and they have almost enough money to fight, and they are having this much of a result.
Well, with Microsoft, I would say Microsoft messed up with Xbox, and that was like, it's kind of like if you had a small room in your house if you had little kids, and they're at that age where they like to use their hands to paint shit on the walls, and you had a room in your house, like a small 5x6 room that you're like, hey, you put like some of that disposable wallpaper on the walls, and you're like, paint to your heart's content. That's basically the Xbox for Microsoft. Like the Xbox is not like a major part of their money. You know what I mean? So they could afford to fuck up with it.
I was considering how many times they effed up for 3 generations.
Yeah, 4 generations.
Yeah, I'm surprised that somebody hasn't spoke up about how much of a mess.
Well, I mean, it's Microsoft. Like, Microsoft can afford to mess up because it's not a major part of their business. But Google, data and search engines and all that type of shit, this is their business, and they managed to fuck that up with this. They had people were literally, I'm so excited about this. I'm like, are you sure you should be excited about it? Maybe cautiously optimistic.
This is from the same group that discontinued Google videos, as in
Hangouts.
Google Plus.
Google Hangouts.
And some other services, which would include some of YouTube.
Yeah, but it's Google. Let's get off of Google. Speaking of companies that have enough money to keep on fucking up, but shouldn't have no good reason to, Nintendo.
Let me
fucked
do
up.
this, Fred. Let me do this because I know you're gonna rip on them anyways.
All right, go ahead.
Nintendo, I know that you are at least trying to clean things up. Though seriously, I'm surprised that it happened again after you. Though then again, if anything, I'm at least trying, unlike other people. But I think you might buy with a compass, since if anything, you got ice.
All right. I mean, only thing I'm gonna say is this.
Hey,
you guys.
That they at least tried to their security by adding two personnel.
Two-factor identification.
Yeah, and disabled, sadly, using your NID to try to log into your account.
Well,
And those
here
are actually not bad.
here's all I'm gonna say. People have to pay for this online service now. When it was free, and goes to even back to friend codes and shit like that. When it was free, I mean, people may have tried to hack Nintendo shit, but we didn't hear about people's accounts getting hacked into and shit being charged that they didn't do. Um, you know, if the service was still free, I would say, well, what do you expect? It's free. You can't expect absolute security with a free service because it's free. I mean, there's just going to be a certain level of, well, we can't do certain shit. But the fact that the quality of the service has gone down, people's shit is getting hacked, and you're charging people for this. And I know it's literally like 30% of what you have to pay on Sony or Microsoft's end of their online services, but still, you're paying for this now. You should expect a better quality of service. So Nintendo, you're fucking up. Stop doing it. Do better. Moving on. Speaking of companies fucking up and need to do better, Activision, Microsoft, and EA are finally, after 20 years of having online games that have huge gaming populations filled with people who use the N-word and racial slurs and sexual slurs against people in voice chat and in lobbies, are finally doing something about it after, you know, the events that have been going on over the past month or so.
And I equivalent of a Band-Aid.
Well, it's the equivalent of someone getting stabbed in the chest, and then 5 years later you're like, hey, let me take you to the hospital. Well, shit, man, I got stabbed 5 years ago. I needed your help 5 years ago. Except in this case, it's 20 years ago, because I remember playing Halo in certain lobbies against people who had clever versions of the N-word spelled out, and playing, not me personally playing, but seeing people play Call of Duty and having people call people F-bombs and C-bombs and N-words and
all those swears.
Just really offensive shit. Like, really offensive. And here's the thing, okay? It's a culture thing. It's not just a race thing. It's a culture thing. Because when I was like, okay, I'll give an example, okay? When I was a young person, like a little kid, like young, one of the insults you could say to another dude was, man, stop acting like a fag. Okay? That was...
I thought you would go with your mama.
No. It's like, man, stop acting like a fag. Right? That was the big insult when we were, like, I want to say 7, 8, 9, 10. Like, stop acting like a faggot, you know? And then you get to a certain age where you realize that is an offensive term, because it's like you're essentially saying, well, if someone is gay, that's a bad thing. And if someone is effeminately gay, that's a bad thing. You know, people need to be able to live their truth no matter what they are. Because if you can't live your truth, people become ultra repressed and then that's how you get people who go around doing crazy shit. Because they're so repressed about what they truly are. But, we had to basically fight against our lesser human natures to be better than what we were. And not use that term as a derogatory slang term. It's the equivalent of how we used to say, well, you hit like a girl. You know, stop acting like, man up, stop acting like a girl. Like, what's so bad about acting like a woman? Because women are tough. I mean, a woman's body has been designed through evolution to give birth to another human being. If men had to do that shit, there'd be one new child born and men would say, never again. No more children. The human race would die out.
Extreme way of putting it, Red.
And so basically, my point is this. We use these derogatory slang terms, and people were using them for years. Still use them. And just now, Activision, Microsoft, and EA are like, we need to do something about that. Why couldn't you do something about that 20, 15 years ago? 10 years ago? Why is it just now when people are protesting?
Yeah, this other thing, but I'll save it for off air.
I mean, you know, like people might like to talk shit about Nintendo. I'm one of them. I will talk shit about Nintendo when they fuck up in a minute. But I'll tell you this much: on the Wii U, on the Wii U had Miiverse. I didn't have to worry about shit like that on Miiverse, because Miiverse had what are they called? Not censors, but like
Mods.
yeah, they had moderators on Miiverse. So if something was deemed too risque, they were like, no, you can't do that.
More than what we could say about some other things.
All right. So you know what? I mean, it's good that you're finally doing something, but you should have done this years ago. And before someone cries censorship. Look, here's how your First Amendment works. For those of you people who are too fucking dumb to actually take an American government or civics course in high school or college, or even in junior high school, or wherever, to learn about how the government works and how your amendments and rights work. So let me explain it to you for those of you who don't know, okay? The First Amendment means that the government cannot punish you for your right to free speech. They can't throw you in jail for cursing in public. They can't throw you in jail for saying something that someone else doesn't like. However, that's only public institutions, okay? Public institutions can't throw you in jail, okay? However,
if you're in a private area, you're screwed.
However, okay, a private institution can. And these games that people have spent 60 or 40 or however much they spent to buy, first of all, the online service is run by a private institution. Typically by, it's being hosted by a private institution, and the actual game itself was published and developed by private institutions. And not only that, but even if you take out the whole private institution thing, do you think that people who paid $60 and are using this service paid to be insulted, cursed out, and called names? No, they did not.
They pay to see your rear end off the air.
So your right to say whatever the fuck you want is trumped by their right that they basically paid into. They paid into this thing in order to have certain things. So the First Amendment doesn't protect you against private institutions saying, you can't say that here, get the fuck out. So don't cry censorship. The first people always say, oh, you're censoring me because you're saying stupid shit. Okay? As someone who owns a private business, a white dude, after the Trayvon Martin thing, came into one of my establishments with trying to start some shit, talking shit. I asked him to leave. He was like, well, are you being discriminatory? I'm like, no, but this is a private business. I don't have to because basically you're insulting my other patrons. And I, as a private business, don't have to lose money because of one asshole.
In short, in order to maintain business you would want, you do not want the scumbags that have attitudes to be in your facility.
Well, it's just one dude. It was just one dude. But still, I was like, man, you need to get the fuck out of here because you're an asshole. I can't let you.
I was trying to be formal and polite about it.
I didn't call him an asshole to his face. I was just like, dude, you're being inappropriate. You're being inappropriate, and I'm gonna have to ask you to leave.
Yeah.
And there was nothing wrong with it because sometimes you got to ask people to leave. Speaking of asking people to leave,
don't tell me something saying get off the internet.
No, Akumi Nakamura, the lady who was working with Bethesda and then somehow was asked to leave Bethesda. She used to work at Capcom, and then she went indie for a while, and then she went to work for Bethesda, and then they got rid of her. And she basically has plans to visit Capcom after the pandemic to get to see if she can convince them to let Platinum Games make a new Okami game with Hideki Kamiya as the director. Now, personally, If that happened, I would be ecstatic with joy. I'd be like that song "Walking on Sunshine."
Do, 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 do.
Yeah, because Okami is one of my favorite Zelda clones, and I would love to see what a true sequel could do. And I know what some people want to say. Okami didn't. Look, there's some games that should be on a home console, and there's some games that should be on a handheld, and then there's some games that it doesn't really matter. Like RPGs, most RPGs don't can either be on a home console or a handheld. It doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, and the calm and tactical ones. The
Well,
action ones, your mileage may vary.
yeah, for action ones, it's a little bit on the you might need that more. Well, it depends on what type of action. If it's more like a button masher action, you can kind of get away with it being on a handheld. But if it's like something where the action is this grandiose, lots of particle effects, and oh man, look at that dude, look at that cool special attack. Okay, you might need a home console for the power that's going to bring to the party to have those special attacks on screen. But Okami is one of those games that really was at its best when it was on a home console. I've played Okamiden. It's okay. It feels more like a side story. There really needs to be a sequel to Okami, like a true sequel. Expand on that world. Maybe the first Okami basically gives you like a crash course on Japanese mythology. Maybe do with a true sequel to Okami, you bring in some Chinese mythology.
Mm-hmm.
So then you can have some Journey to the West shit in there too. Like have Amaterasu Okami meet Sun Wukong from Journey to the West. And
Oh, I think you're making some people's minds anticipation.
the monk Tagatha and Pigsy and the Dragon Prince and all that cool shit. That would be awesome. But look, listen. It just either way, just do another Okami, put it on consoles and PC, and call it a day. Because Okami is one of those really good games where it's a great Zelda clone. The flaws of the game was that you could tell that Clover Studios, aka Platinum, was working with a budget, and that budget precluded them from really making it as big and grand as it could be.
I was about to say, how small? How small of a budget?
I don't know how small the budget was. I just could tell. You can tell when a game is on a budget because basically, certain games have a flow, right? Like Zelda games have a flow to them where it's like, okay, like you reach a certain point and it's like, okay, the next stage of the game is supposed to begin. Okami has the third stage of progression is really, really savagely curtailed. Because basically, you could tell Clover was like, we got to wrap this shit up. Now, either that was because of budget constraints or time constraints. But time is also part of your budget. So, either way, they probably were like, we got to get this game out. Which is sad because it bombed on the PS2. And the game wasn't really... Yeah, the game bombed on the PS2. It was profitable when they re-released it for the Wii. And then when they re-released it for the PS4 and the Xbox One... it bombed again, because believe it or not, Okami was part of the Capcom 5. The 5 games were supposed to be exclusive to the GameCube.
I thought that was Capcom 5. But then again, I know that Phoenix was.
Yeah, it was part. It was going to be part of the games that were supposed to be exclusive to the GameCube. There was that Phoenix game. There was
PN.
Yeah, that one came out. There was Beautiful Joe. Beautiful Joe, believe it or not, was supposed to be a GameCube exclusive. Okami was supposed to be a GameCube exclusive, and Resident Evil 4 was a GameCube exclusive. So basically, of the Capcom 5, only one was a GameCube exclusive, and that was PN5. The other 4 were either canceled or they were moved over to the PS2. Yeah. I mean, that's the reason Shinji Mikami left Capcom, because they broke the contract with Nintendo over the GameCube for Resident Evil 4.
Which you have to admit, that kind of sucks when you know that contract that hardly that sent someone packing.
Well, the hilarious thing is that a lot of companies did that. Like Namco Bandai did that with Tales of Symphonia. But the best version of Tales of Symphonia is the GameCube version because the GameCube version is 60 frames per second, which means that the combat is smooth. It's like it's 600p. Yeah, it's very smooth. On every other console, it's 30 frames per second, which means it feels kind of slow. And if you played the GameCube version, it's hard to play it on other platforms.
I was going to say, it feels like a movie watching, right? With 30 frames per second?
Well, it feels like when you're fighting, you're in... Like, when you're just walking around the overworld, it feels a little slow. But when you're in combat, it's really slow. Because on the GameCube, it was fast. Like, combat was fast. It was very fluid. 30 frames per second when you're walking around is kind of slow, but you can deal with it because it's an RPG. But when you're fighting, it's like, no, this doesn't even feel like Tales of Symphonia. Which is why when I play that game on PC, I play it with cheats. Just so that I can get the fights over with, because they're so slow. It's not even fun to really fight in that game. TS Nintendo Gamer says, "Hi, I was born in 1993 as well." Roboto. Oh, that's cool, man. I was not born in 93. I was born in 86, so that makes me way older than both of you.
86. That means I'm a year high. I'm a year.
Yeah, you're 85, which is kind of weird because a lot of my friends are always 1 year older than me. Like a lot of my friends when I was in high school were like born in 85. So, you know.
Yeah, so that makes me a weird number here.
Not really. I mean, we're around the same age. We can talk about a lot of the same shit, so it's good. Okay, then. So, yeah. So, just, you know, my own thoughts. I would love to see another Okami. I would love to see another Okami made on consoles. Here's the thing. At this point, I'm not even one of those people. Please let it come to the Switch. Really, I wouldn't want another Okami game to come to the Switch because I wouldn't want the Switch's hybrid nature pulling that game down just so that they can get it on the Switch.
I was going to say that as much as I think that the Switch has a certain amount of power, that I kind of wish that it was not a hybrid.
Well, unfortunately, it is.
That's the only thing I wish.
That's what its hybrid nature holds it back for certain types of games.
Yeah.
Like their games, like I love the Outer Worlds. I saw someone playing that shit handheld mode on the Switch. I was like, man, I'm glad I didn't buy that game over the Switch. I was like, man, I don't want to buy this on the initially I was like, man, I'm not gonna buy this on the Epic Game Store. I'm gonna buy it on the Switch. But then I thought I'm like, wait, I have this expensive ass gaming PC. Why the fuck would I buy this game so that it can be ported to the Switch so I can play a clearly downgraded version of the game just so that I can say I have it on the Switch, or I can play it on my expensive ass gaming rig. And I'm gonna go on my gaming rig, and I'm glad I didn't make that. I'm glad I didn't make that that choice.
I poke you a bit with some of that because if I remember right, this is the same insult of tactics that Sony used for this N64, but there's some of it.
Yeah, but here's the difference though. A lot of the multiplats that were on the N64 versus the PS1, the N64 version was better. There are games that are multiplats for the Switch where the game is there, but there is a clear downgrade. I mean, basically what you're getting on the Switch is, okay, I can play this anywhere. I can play it over the toilet. I mean, personally, unless it's a Game Boy, I don't want to play anything over the toilet.
Hey, if anything, I highly hope for a new handheld.
Well,
out of Nintendo sometime.
I wish there would be one too, but it's not looking likely.
Hey, I keep my hopes up because the Switch is not a handheld, and I know people It is.
No, it's not a handheld. It's a hybrid, but like here's the thing: the Switch does fill that niche of a handheld as well for a lot of people. So for a lot of gamers, like I mean, look in Japan. Everyone's like, man, the Switch is selling gangbusters in Japan. It should. It basically took the place of the Vita and the 3DS in Japan, and the Vita and the 3DS sold gangbusters in Japan. So yeah, it's gonna do well in Japan. You know, Like, here's the thing: people were like, we don't need a dedicated gaming handheld, like a handheld, like handhelds are dead. For a lot of people, they're using their Switch as a handheld, and seeing the amount of people who are buying, I would be very interested to see a poll where you see the amount of people who own Switches. Do they use the Switch as a handheld or do they use it as a home console? And I guarantee you, like I don't have any data in front of me, but I guarantee you the vast majority of people who own Switches, they use it as a handheld. That is their primary way of playing it. So for them, it is a handheld. And I mean, I primarily, when I do play my Switch, I do use it as a console, but I guarantee a lot of people probably do use it as a handheld. And so what this proves that yes, there does need to be a handheld in the market. And why would you bet against Nintendo as the king of handhelds? Like, why would you? I wouldn't take that. That's a sucker's bet.
I was about to. If you bet for another handheld, look where the Vita, PSP are right now.
Well, the Vita failed because Sony didn't support it. Like they put like one big game on it and then they were like, oh, it didn't do well. Bye.
I was saying, look at where the PSP are right now. Because they stopped their trains way down.
I mean, basically, the Vita, Sony with their Vita and the PSVR, like PSVR, I don't think was as successful as people thought it was going to be, and I don't know why. Here's the thing: VR is not going to work as long as it's not an integral part of the console from day one. And if people have to buy extra shit in order to have access to it, it's not going to do well. If you're going to have a peripheral, it better come with that shit day one. You want to know why Wii and the motion control worked? Because Nintendo had that shit with the system day one. Yeah, it was included with the thing. You had to use it or you weren't playing with it. TS Nintendo's gamer says they think it will work on the Switch like most games, but I haven't played that game. So you haven't played Okami, but you think it will work well on the Switch if they did an Okami sequel. Here's the thing. Okami is the type of game where, like, I mean, there's certain games that...
Well, you need precise brushstrokes?
No, there are certain games that are, how can I put this? They're marquee titles. Like, they're there to show just how fucking badass your console is. And it doesn't work if you try to downgrade that shit. Like, okay, like Star Fox 64, right? Star Fox 64 at its core is basically just Star Fox 2 with better graphics and better graphical processing power. That's all it is. Yeah, you could do Star Fox. A lot of those ideas and gameplay mechanics are present in Star Fox 2 on the SNES. But in order for that experience to be showcased at its best, it was done on the N64. There's certain games that you can put them on inferior hardware and get it to run, but that kind of negates the whole purpose of the game. And unfortunately, Okami is one of those games that really is at its best when you can show off just how awesome these colors are, how great the color palette is, how great the physics engine is. That's part of the joy of that game. It's just, wow, look at all these colors, look at all this water paints, look at the drawings, look at the lore, look at the interesting enemy design. This combat is tighter than it should be in this type of game. That's the joy of Okami. And I wouldn't want them to have to compromise that to get it on the Switch.
I mean, it can happen, but it's best not to for some.
It's like Metroid Prime 4. I don't want them to basically take out features of that game or cut down what it can do just to get it on the Switch.
if you want to really make an example of it,
Like they did from Breath of the
the
Wild.
poster for this, yes, Breath of the Wild.
They took out features of Breath of the Wild because they wanted that shit to run on the Switch. I don't want to do that. I don't want to deal with that. I want them to be. I want them to basically like. Okay, there's certain games where it's okay if they just kind of like fuck around on the console and do the bare minimum. I don't. That doesn't bother me. But there's some games where it's like a new 3D Mario game. They have got to swing for the fences with those games. Right? You got to be like, man, this is what this console. Look at this cool shit. And people everyone always say Nintendo hardware is weak, but every Nintendo console's had a game where you were like, there's no way that game should be able to be on that console, and people were impressed by it. So yeah, I think that if they do a new Okami, I want that game to be either on next gen hardware or just don't have it come to the Switch, because I don't want to deal with the inferior. And if they do, I mean, if it comes to the Switch, good for everyone who doesn't have a gaming PC or a gaming laptop or whatever. If there's a game that I know is going to be graphically intensive and have a lot of bennies and look all badass and shit, I'll probably just get it on PC versus the Switch. And if it's a Nintendo game, it's not going to come to the PC anyway. It's going to come to the Switch anyway. So if it's like a first party game, like once I find out more about Origami King, I might get it. If it doesn't tick off my checklist of shit that I want in a Paper Mario game, I won't get it. But if it does, I'll get it, and it's exclusive to the Switch, so I'll have to get it on that system. But yeah, playing games on a toilet is weird, but that's what we used to do back in the day. I mean, you don't know about this, but back in the day, if you could sneak your Game Boy into school, Game Boy or Game Boy Color, go to the bathroom, have 10 minutes left in class and go to the bathroom and just stay there and just fucking just play your games till the end of class. That was the best. You don't know nothing about that though.
Gods, I haven't pulled that stuff off, but if any, that would be the ultimate. That would be the ultimate no-no for me.
I did. Well, I hated until I hit junior high. I hated school. I hated going to class. I mean, I went to class because I had to, but I hated. There were certain classes where I just hated being in there. I was like, man, I fucking hate this course. I hate this subject. I hate I hate the teacher. I hate this book. I hate this work. I hate these tests.
That's the funny thing. I never had that kind of problem.
I did. I mean, I was a chronic fuck up until I hit
anybody that went that was in public school. You're a private.
Yeah. I hated school until I got to 7th grade. Because in 7th grade, basically, I could choose the subjects I wanted to take. And so I finally started taking subjects that interested me. And I began to love school because I could take things that interested me and not just shit that was mandatory. Which just changed my view on school. But that's just me. Let's get to the rest of these subjects. So the next subject question is, what Nintendo 64 game has the best soundtrack?
Ooh, that's a trick. Though, if anything, I would give it to Mario 64 but mostly I give it to the Banjo-Kazooie series.
All right. I am not going with Mario 64 because I found the music to just be meh in that game.
There's a few tracks that are pretty sweet.
I mean,
mostly to Banjo-Kazooie series.
Maybe Bowser, when you get to Bowser's level, that music is kind of interesting. Yeah. The rest of it's just kind of meh. I would have to say my favorite soundtrack in Nintendo 64, hands down, is Conker's Bad Fur Day.
You actually thought was that good?
It has the soprano. It has the soprano with the Great Mighty Pooh.
Oh no! I mean, great. Now you got that. Head.
That song, they got a professional opera singer
I
to
know what to
sing
sing.
that song.
I am
The
the
Great
great
Mighty
mighty
Pooh.
Pooh.
The Great Mighty
He's
Pooh.
gonna take
He's
at
gonna throw his
you.
shit at you. That's all. Like, and the whole song is nothing but shit. But different ways of saying shit. It's like, have some more caviar. It's like, oh no. Yes. Conker's Bad Fur Day is my #1 best game soundtrack. #2, maybe Diddy Kong Racing. #3
I thought that would
is
be your #1.
#3 is Donkey Kong Country 64. Because when they have atmospheric music in that game, it really works. Let's see, what else? Killer Instinct Gold. But you notice all the games I said were like rare games.
I was gonna say, I just realized, pings me that came from Killer Instinct that you
Mhm.
mentioned. Why did they get rid of the humiliation? Come on,
And the new Killer Instinct?
huh?
And the new Killer Instinct or Killer Instinct Gold?
Ever since they moved to the 64 era, they had no, they only had the brutalities of the finishers. No, and no, not even the new ones. Hey, I noticed that these.
Yeah, they didn't have Humiliation's Killer Instinct Gold.
Yeah,
I
they
thought they
stopped
did,
doing
but
that.
apparently not. I haven't played Killer Instinct Gold as much as the first Killer Instinct. To be honest with you, I like Killer Instinct Gold, but aka Killer Instinct 2, but I prefer the first Killer Instinct more than Killer Instinct Gold. But that's my own little personal thing. So we already talked about Alex Kidd. So our final little bit of news before we move on to our next segment is there's a rumor that Persona 4 Golden is coming to Steam. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
And I could hear all those fans screaming and hollering for it.
I mean, I like Persona 4 Gold. I got it for my PS Vita TV, which I don't even have hooked up anymore because I was like, I tried. I really did try, but I was like, I can't. You know?
Yeah.
But, I mean, to be fair, I am not a huge fan of I'm not a huge fan of the Vita, but I love Persona 4. Like, to me, Persona 4 is better than Persona 5. And I know some people are going to get angry at me. They're like, how dare you, you bastard. To me, it's better than Persona 5. I know some people are going to get angry and talk shit and be like, how dare you, but it's better than Persona 5 to me. And I know some people are going to get angry, but I don't care. It's better than Persona 5 to me. And if this is true, I would totally buy. I would totally buy that game again because I've already bought Persona 4 like 4 times now because I have 2 versions for the PS2 and I bought it twice for the PS3 and the PS Vita, so because I have a Vita TV, so like I'll buy it again because I really love Persona 4 Gold. Persona 4. Plus, Golden adds a few extra shit to it, so that's cool. Um, all right. So I guess we can move on to our next topic, Jewel, which is let me check my handy dandy notebook. I sound like Steve from Blues Clues. Pull out our handy dandy notebook. Blues Clues, Blues Clues. So we're gonna play a little game called Would You Rather. So I'm gonna say Would You Rather, and then I'll give you a choice between one thing or another thing, and you'll say which one you'd rather have and why. But keep in mind that the other one, we're gonna pretend like it's getting destroyed or it never existed. So this is kind of serious. You can either have one or the other, not both. So here you go. Would you rather have a 2D Metroid or a 3D Metroid?
You said, would I rather have a 2D Metroid or
3D Metroid.
personally? I'm a 2D'er.
All right. Why?
And I can hear all these people saying, but what Prime? I was never a Prime.
All right. So it just never grabbed you?
Never grabbed me. In fact, it made me feel like I couldn't even get through some of the game.
All right. Okay. So TS Nintendo Gamer says that they didn't have a problem with graphics until college, and Paper Mario and F-Zero X has the best soundtrack for a 64 game. All right. All right. I have to say I agree with you. I mean, I like like here's the thing. I like Metroid Prime a lot, but the problem with some of the 2D games is that they keep on trying to turn the 2D games into like 2D versions of the Metroid Prime, which doesn't work. Like Metroid Prime, like the 2D games need to be like they were back in the day. Like, you know, Metroid 2, Samus Returns, Zero Mission, Fusion. Like that's how the 2D Metroids need to be. 3D games can be like Metroid Prime, where it's more like, you know, this is a living, breathing world, and you're just in it doing shit. Whereas, you know, 2D Metroid games are more focused. Like, you got to get here, you got to do this shit in order to trigger this event, in order to get this ability, so you can go back here and do this. And I mean, besides, I mean, even if 3D Metroids went away, you could get that back because they're based off of the 2D Metroids. So if they went away, that doesn't mean you couldn't get it again. Next, would you rather Street Fighter versus Mortal Kombat? Would you rather have Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat, and why?
Much as I'm not one for gore, I weirdly go Mortal Kombat, since they actually try to evolve and grow their game and trying to make a decent pace, unlike Street Fighter, which slowing down as far as I know with 4 and 5.
Yeah, it's gotten kind of slow as molasses, really. I'm gonna say Street Fighter. I would rather have Street Fighter than Mortal Kombat because to me, you know, Mortal Kombat is fun, but I just can't take it seriously as a fighting game.
I was about to say, what happened that make you say that?
Because the only thing Mortal Kombat has going for it is that it's just got fatalities. Like, I don't consider it to be, oh man, this is a great 2D fighting game. It's just, oh, it's got fatalities in it. You know? Whereas, like, here's the thing. The spin-offs that have come off of the hills of, that were inspired by and came off the hills of Street Fighter are better than Street Fighter, but they wouldn't exist without Street Fighter 2. Whereas the spin-offs that came off trying to imitate Mortal Kombat are trash. Like Eternal Champions is trash. That weird arcade game where the enemies, like, everyone had a sword and they could, like, cut off each other's limbs. That was trash. Like, Mortal Kombat didn't inspire greatness, whereas Street Fighter did. Like, Street Fighter inspired SNK to make their 2D fighting games. And, you know, Arc System Works to make Guilty Gear and Blaze Blue. Right? Some of the best 2D fighters of all time take their inspiration off of Street Fighter. And so, you know, even if I'm not like all that enthused about Street Fighter, what came out of it is great. Whereas Mortal Kombat, ugh. I mean, you know, get over here and ripping a dude's spine out of his back and freezing a dude and punch him into pieces. I'm like, okay, so it's violent. Okay, what else does this game have going for it? Not a damn thing. The only thing I'll say that is good about Mortal Kombat is that their guest characters are way more interesting than than
Then Street Fighters.
Street Fighters. Yeah, Street Fighter's guest characters are just sad. Like Mortal Kombat, like Mortal Kombat 11 has like RoboCop and Terminator and like Jason Voorhees and no, I think that was the last one had Jason Voorhees. Mortal Kombat 10. Like they have all these interesting characters. Street Fighter doesn't even have guest characters. Like occasionally they'll do a crossover with another fighting franchise, but like I mean it would be cool if Street Fighter had guest characters from other Capcom universes and not as joke characters like Mega Man. Like legit like guest characters like hey, it's Mike Hager from Final Fight. And they kind of did that with Street Fighter Alpha, but it wasn't well utilized.
Sad to say.
Yeah. Okay, so next one. Sega. Would you rather have Sega versus Nintendo?
Sega versus Nintendo?
You can only have one. Sega or Nintendo?
It's probably gonna spark some people to hate me, but I'd say Nintendo. I mean, Nintendo has proven that they've at least edit and change themselves over the years, and well, they managed to still do that, and sometimes it's for the better, and sometimes it's questionable.
All right, fair enough. I agree. I would rather have Nintendo versus Sega. Nintendo over Sega. Because Sega, like, here's the thing. I've never been like I enjoy Sega games, but they aren't dear to me. Now, part of that is because the primary console in my household, typically speaking, like the first console I get of a new console gen is a Nintendo console, and I'm normally heavily invested in their games. So it's like my childhood memories are more Nintendo games than Sega games. But I mean, I just think Sega hasn't really held up their end as being a great video game company like Nintendo has. Like they don't take care of their IPs. Nintendo is stingy with their IPs. Like IPs that they aren't using, they just lock away in a vault. But they don't make shitty versions of those IPs, right? Like the shit that Sega has done with Sonic the Hedgehog, Nintendo would never do. Like if Shigeru Miyamoto, like Shigeru Miyamoto doesn't make games anymore. He's just like one of the executives. But if someone at Nintendo's mainline Mario team, like if they'd made a Mario game that was on par with Sonic 06, someone would be killed. Like someone would have to commit seppuku at Nintendo. Like you have to die. Like be some Yakuza shit going on. Okay.
Oh yeah.
So just on GP, Nintendo has upheld their legacy better than Sega has, and they've like basically they have a better legacy in my opinion. Because I mean, Sega's legacy is basically, hey, we fuck up a lot. Next one, would you rather have the next one is, would you rather have Sony or Microsoft?
Ooh. Poison, huh?
Yeah, you choose your poison.
Sadly, it's gonna be hard, but I go Microsoft.
Really?
At least, which is weird. They kept on failing, but in a sense, they at least to pull what Sony's been pulling off lately and trying to grab it. But then again, that's the- that's probably the lesser of two evils kind of feeling. And I could bet you that I could see you might go Sony.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Sony. The only reason I'm going Sony is because there are some games that were exclusive to Sony that are really fucking good. And if Sony didn't exist, those games wouldn't come out. Like I couldn't have had Dragon Quest VIII. I couldn't have had Final Fantasy X or 12. I couldn't have had Medieval. I couldn't have had Spyro the Dragon. I'm not a Spyro the Dragon fan, but I mean, a lot of people enjoy those games. Like, there's so many good games that are PlayStation exclusives. Like, I couldn't have had Ratchet and Clank, Going Commando, or Up Your Arsenal. I couldn't have had Jak and Daxter 2 or 3. Like, there's some really good exclusive games that are exclusive to Sony that I couldn't have enjoyed if Sony didn't exist. Whereas there is absolutely no game that has come to Microsoft that was an exclusive that I couldn't have enjoyed someplace else, like on PC. So it's like Microsoft is completely unnecessary to the gaming ecosphere, in my opinion. They're there. They're just there. They're like a extra. They're like a human being with a tail. It's like you don't need a tail. You have a tail, but you don't need it. It's like, why are you here? You know, they're basically like when you and your girl are going out on a well, it's like when you and your girl are going out on a date and a motherfucker shows up and invites himself on the date with you, and you're like, motherfucker, no one invited you here, and you shouldn't be here in the first place. That's Microsoft, just wasting time, energy, space, and fucking up shit for everybody else. That's Microsoft. So yeah, if they disappeared out of the video game industry, I wouldn't shed a tear. I'd be like, okay, good, fuck them. All right, next one. Would you rather have home consoles or arcades?
You broke up on me a little. What was that?
Would you rather have home consoles or arcades?
Home console or
Arcades.
what?
Arcades. Home consoles or arcades?
Uh, now, um, hard call, but I lead to home consoles because if anything, do you really want quarters in an arcade and well, have your money be have your bank be in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade machine?
Um,
I said it slightly to home consoles.
uh, I mean, I would rather have home consoles versus arcades. And I know people are like, how can you say that when you own a business that, you know, entices customers to come inside by playing video games, through arcade machines? Look, I will explain it to you. I How can I put this nicely? Um, I think most of the games, even a lot of the games that were arcade ports to home console, I think the home console version, especially once you got to like the fourth, fifth, sixth gen, is superior to the arcade. So like a lot of arcade games are just designed to be really hard so that people will spend their money. Whereas, in home console games, you can play as much as you want, and a lot of times the it's a better game. So why would I pay out all this extra money for an inferior, I mean, it doesn't seem like a lot, but in order for you to truly master a lot of arcade games, you're gonna have to spend at least 3, 4, 5 sittings playing that game, and you're gonna have to spend at least $20 in quarters and coins to play the game. So you've already spent more than just the $60 or $70 to buy the cartridge or the game. So, I mean, it's cheaper to just buy the game for home console.
Yeah.
So I'm going with home console versus arcade. Number 6, horizontal versus vertical shooters.
Horizontal versus vertical.
Yep.
Red?
It's your choice. I'm letting you go first.
I was trying to figure out what you mean by horizontal versus vertical there.
Okay, basically think R-Type and Gradius versus Ikaruga or Star Soldier. Like one is horizontal shooters and the other one is vertical, where you're going. It's a vertical. It's like like you're flying. Yeah.
That's a hard one because they both of those in a sense. But I think I go with the up and down one of personal preferences and classicness, because basically you're watching things coming down at you.
So basically vertical.
That makes you feel a bit of an urgency there.
So basically vertical, right?
Yeah.
All right. I'm going with horizontal. On a personal level, I'm much better at horizontal shooters than vertical ones. Like, I suck at vertical shooters, which is weird because
guys.
How's it going, Kenoshi?
Hey, what are you guys talking about?
We're doing a would you rather, given the choice between one or the other, and basically the other one that you don't choose is destroyed. It doesn't exist anymore. This is hypothetical. So right now we're doing horizontal versus vertical shooters, and I chose. Jules chose vertical shooters. I chose horizontal because I'm much better at horizontal shooters than vertical ones.
Yeah, I would choose. I think I would choose vertical. Vertical shooters. I think they're easier to follow.
All right.
I would choose horizontal if we were talking about a mouse and keyboard, where you get to control the ship with the mouse and shoot with the keyboard. But if we're talking about this game controllers, then yeah, vertical.
You prefer vertical, yeah. Well, I mean, look, man, to each his own. The only reason, like I said, I'm better at horizontal shooters than vertical shooters. So for me, like vertical shooters, especially bullet hell vertical shooters, I'm good for the first 2 levels. And then after that, it just gets to be too much. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Horizontal shooters like Gradius, R-Type, Darius, like once you get powered up, it's like I'm way better at those. So to me, I'm better at, like, I don't want to play something that's going to frustrate me to the point where I just get mad. So for me, it's something that's not frustrating. Okay, number 7, old school Star Fox, aka Star Fox 1, 2, 64 versus new school Star Fox, aka the one for the DS, the remake for the 3DS, the one for the GameCube, and the one for the Wii U.
I'd say old school.
All right, Kenoshi.
Kenoshi.
Okay. I guess it'll be me. I'm going to go old school Star Fox. The reason why is because I don't
have the same reason that the new Star Fox doesn't feel right in it.
Well, they're trying to do too much. I mean, really, to be honest with you, I think Star Fox 64 is trying to do too much. I prefer the first Star Fox over all the other ones. Because it's like, look, it's an on-rail shooter. That's all we're trying to do. Like, I think every other Star Fox game is trying to do way too damn much instead of just being an on-the-rail shooter. Like, stop trying to add all these gimmicks and shit. Just pick 1 or 2 things and just try to do that really well. Plus, I don't like the music of the later Star Fox games. I like the
Yeah.
I like the first Star Fox's music. It's like electronic rock, which I like. Um, like I don't like the later games that much. I also don't like the voice acting. I liked that they basically each character had their own language, and then you had to read the subtitles, which made a lot of sense to me, rather than everyone speaking the same shit. That was kind of weird to me. I didn't like that.
I'd say, yeah, I would agree. Old school Star Fox. Uh, eh, I think, the old Super Nintendo game's nostalgic, but that game's hard to play though. That game's hard to go back to.
It's hard to play because you didn't grow up playing. I mean, if you didn't grow up playing that game, I will admit it is hard. If you're used to like high frame rates and responsive controls and and all that type of stuff, it's hard. But if you grew up playing it, your muscle memory, you'll play it for like one level, and then your muscle memory will come back and be like, oh man, and plus that music is so awesome. Like even when you die, the death music is awesome.
I mean, I played it when I was younger. It's just your memory gets betrayed. Your memory
Yeah,
betrays you.
yeah, but I mean, just for some reason, like I'll go plug that game in on my SNES. I don't have an SNES Classic because every time I tried to get one, it was always not on sale. So I just got like I just said fuck it and just drag out my SNES and play the original. And I tell you, it's to me that game still holds up. I know a lot of people will disagree. I don't care, but because it's pure. It's not trying to do all this. It's like it doesn't have rumble. It doesn't try to be a space opera. It's just an on the rail shooter. Okay, that's all it's trying to be with some awesome kick-ass music. That's all I needed. Like, I don't know why everyone keeps on, well, we need to do this. It needs to have this. No, it just needs to be awesome and with good music. That's all we're asking. The next one, Rare versus Retro.
New versus retro.
Yeah, one lives, one dies.
I say that's a little tricky, but I say new school since it seems to evolve.
No,
So that's why-
it's Rareware versus Retro Studios.
Oh, I would want Rareware, but I go Retro Studios then because they are at least trying to make what they could of the past with some of their games. Rare, but they at least are still evolving in a sense.
Okay. Kenoshi?
I would say rare just for the fact that they, again, mainly nostalgic reasons. Man, I think the new Donkey Kong Country games are all right, but my most fondest memories of Donkey Kong are Donkey Kong Country and Donkey Kong Country 2 on the Game Boy, because that was my first Game Boy game. Not to mention Banjo Kazooie and Banjo Tooie. Yeah, so.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm going to go Rare as well, but here's my caveat. It's the Rare. It's like, this is Nintendo Rare. This is not Rare as it is right now. Okay? I like Retro. They're nice. I like their games, but they don't hold a fucking candle to Rare in their golden age. I'm sorry. It's not even close.
Yeah, I was thinking of Rare as an overall ended up from the past, which was their greatest.
I mean,
their saddest.
Yeah, Rare in their silver and golden ages were like Retro is nice. They're the former remnants of Acclaim and Iguana Studios, and that's nice and all, but Rare during their golden age and silver age, like we're talking Battletoads, Killer Instinct, Saberwolf, um, like those, like Donkey Kong Country, Battletoads, Double Dragons, Battletoads, Battlemania, like Rare during their golden age. I mean, I'm sorry, they shit. like retro, like really, let's keep it real. Retro has made retro have made like 5 games of note for, and I'm not talking about the games they helped work on. I mean games they've made themselves. 3 Metroid Primes and Donkey Kong Country Returns and Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. The 3 Metroid Primes are nice, but they're basically like the first Metroid Prime, the one that sold the highest, is basically just Super Metroid in 3D. That's all it really is. So it's not really innovative. It's just you're taking a 2D formula and transcribing it into a 3D plane. And it works, but I mean, if you played Super Metroid, you've played Metroid Prime, the first Metroid Prime. They refined the franchise over the other 2 games, but you know, and I think Metroid Prime 3 is way better than 2 in the first one. But you know, it took like multiple iterations for them to get to that point. And Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze and Donkey Kong Country Returns, they are nowhere near as good as the games that they're basically aping. No pun intended.
Pun intended.
There was no pun intended. I just said that. Donkey Kong Country Returns is not as good or better than the original Donkey Kong Country, and Tropical Freeze doesn't even hold a fucking candle to Diddy Kong's Quest. So, I mean, you know, Retro just isn't at that same level. They just aren't, you know, it's not at that level.
They don't feel the same.
No, it's just as developers, they aren't at that level. They're just not at that level. So, like, I could if all the shit that they made just disappeared, I'd be like, oh, that's sad. But I mean, you know, just Rareware during their golden age has more good shit. I mean, just the good shit on the SNES, then the good shit that was on the N64. I mean, just that, all that shit alone just is like, okay, I gotta keep that. Next one, Enix versus Squaresoft. You can only keep one. You can either have Enix or you can have Squaresoft.
Well, I would say Squaresoft, just for the fact that I'm more familiar with their games. I've played more of their games, like Final Fantasy VI, Super Mario RPG, Chrono Trigger, and so.
Fair enough. Jewel?
If it was the old Square, like the ones that
no, it's already when I said Squaresoft, that means the old Square. Because if it wasn't, I would have said Square Enix. It's Enix when they were their own shit, and Squaresoft when they were their own shit. They're two completely.
I honestly go with Square, but by the slimmest of margins, because I have memories of playing some of their better games, which is the Final Fantasy series, 1 through I think 8, and also Super Mario and a few other games that probably were like Chrono Trigger.
Super Mario RPG. Okay, I'm gonna go with Enix. Now, hear me out. I know people are like, "Well, don't you love Chrono Trigger? Wasn't that made by Squaresoft?" Chrono Trigger was made by developers. Like, there were more developers on the Enix side making that game than the Squaresoft side of making that game. But I mean, it was a partnership, so you had people from both sides. But I have a soft spot for Dragon Quest. Like, I love that franchise. So, just like I have, and plus, like Enix released some games that were like kind of like off the chain that they took risks with, which Squaresoft did not. Like games that they were afraid wouldn't sell well, they just kept in Japan. Whereas, Enix released Evo. Enix released Soul Blazer and Illusion of Gaia. They did not release Terranigma, which is sad because that game was fully translated. All they had to do was bring it over and adjust the hertz from PAL to the North American region, it would have been fine. But Enix was willing to take risks with their games more so than Squaresoft, which was kind of like, like the reason why we only got you only got Final Fantasy 1 and 2 on the NES. We never got 3 here in America. We got Final Fantasy 2, but it was called, it was like Final Fantasy 4. We never got 5. We got Mystic Quest because they thought we were too fucking stupid to know how to play a fucking RPG. It's shit like that made me say, Squaresoft, they've always underestimated this market for many years. And that's kind of like, I don't like getting talked down to. I'm like Michael Corleone from The Godfather. The thing that upsets me the most is when you insult my intelligence. And Squaresoft really insulted the intelligence of people who play RPGs. Like, you're too fucking dumb to know how to play an RPG, which is hilarious because modern RPGs came into existence because, as we know it, because of D&D, and that was created here in America. The shit that they made their money off of was based off of the roots. Its roots is in D&D, but they thought we're too stupid to know how to play RPGs. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's why the word JRPG is such a kind of a weird term, just because it's at its very essence, at its very core, their mechanics come from a Western game.
No, you can tell when it's a JRPG. Does it have a main protagonist who has amnesia? Check. Does it have a male character who, or do a lot of the male characters have really effeminate looking faces? Like, no man would want to look that effeminate in the face. No straight heterosexual man. Check. Does it have an oblivious male protagonist who has a hot chick hitting on him all the time, but he's just not interested? Check. Oh, it's a JRPG.
No, I'm not even talking about those aspects. Obviously, yeah, those aspects. I'm just talking about the very, just like, the complete, just the gameplay alone, more so.
Oh yeah.
Tropes. Tropes of the stories,
that's kind of like why I gave it to Enix as well, because if you play like the first 3 Dragon Quest games, they're unabashedly basically D&D RPGs. Like their classes are D&D. The max level in Dragon Quest 1 is level 20. You want to know the max level in D&D 2. Advanced D&D is?
What is it?
20.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like basically Dragon Quest at its core was basically just D&D the RPG. Dragon Quest 3, basically in order for you to build your party, you went to a tavern and you recruited heroes. That's what you do. That's what you do in D&D. If you want to recruit people, you go to a tavern and you recruit your heroes. Basically, like Dragon Quest wasn't like, oh, well, you're too stupid to know how to play an RPG. You would learn how to play a classic RPG from playing D&D. From playing Dragon Quest. Try and do that shit from Final Fantasy. It's ridiculous. You can't do it.
That'd be kind of nice to see a JRPG come out that says, you know what, screw all the tropes. We're just going to do our own thing.
There's been ones that have done it. Chrono Trigger.
Yeah. Yeah. And,
Lufia.
Also, I kind of like some of the stuff that the first Bravely Default did, like the fact that, you were kind of the villains, and the people that were trying to stop you were actually trying to save the world, while you were unknowingly, fighting these people that were trying to save the world. You were unknowingly, trying to destroy it.
They weren't really the hero. They weren't really the heroes either. Like, both sides were totally were not all lily white and pure. They both had their issues.
Yeah.
But either way, there are RPGs like Sands of Destruction where you're basically the villain. You're trying to destroy the world because the world is a computer simulation. There RPGs that do kind of go against the tropes, but whatever. Our final would you rather?
What's in the? What are you gonna say, Joel? I was gonna say the Witch and the 99 Nights. He kind of plays the villain in that game. As little as I know about it.
I guess. So our final would you rather before we wrap things up with the channel is: would you rather have 2D platformers versus 3D platformers?
Because it means that you're actually aiming pixel perfect for certain locations, and you can actually, and it means you don't have to worry about missing it because of a single angle.
This one's tricky because there are certain games I like better in 2D than in 3D, and then there are certain games I like better in 3D rather than 2D. That one's tricky. Not sure what I would pick. So like the Metroid games I like better in 2D, while the Mario games I've enjoyed better in 3D. I'm not saying 2D is bad, I'm just saying I enjoyed it more in 3D.
Fair enough. Yeah, this is why I chose this as the last one, because it is kind of it is a little bit tricky. It's not easy. It's meant to be a brain teaser, if you will. I'm gonna go 2D. Just because, when a 2D like a mediocre 3D platformer is bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like a mediocre 3D platformer is bad, but like a mediocre 2D platformer is worse.
Yeah.
Like you can have a mediocre 3D platformer that people love. Like I mean, I would argue and say that Crash Bandicoot is a mediocre 3D platformer. There are mediocre 3D platformers that people really enjoy. Whereas it's hard, like if you have a badly made 2D platformer, you can tell immediately
How terrible it is.
Yeah. Like you don't even have to think about it. It's like, oh, this is bad.
Yeah.
Like no one asked any questions about how bad this was. Like no, like I'll give an example, right? Like those Media Molecule Sackboy games.
Oh, yeah.
Those games in terms of platforming are trash. I mean, they are absolute trash. And like you can play them for like 5 minutes and be like, "Oh yeah, this control is shit." And it's always been kind of bad, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But like even when they Little Big Planet, like even once they even when they updated it to like like even when they brought it up to like the more modern version of the series, it's just like that control that platforming is so bad. I mean, it's so bad. Whereas like a good 2D platformer, you don't even have to ask any questions. You're like, oh man, this is great.
Yeah.
It feels great. You don't have to ask any questions. It's just like, oh man, this is great. This is so great. I love how this feels. I don't feel that way when it comes to like
When it comes to certain things.
like I said, a mediocre 3D platformer you can kind of get away with. It can kind of, you can kind of forgive its mediocrity if there's some other aspect that carries it through. Like Conker's Bad Fur Day. Conker's Bad Fur Day does not have the best platforming mechanics. Like you're gonna miss a lot of jumps, okay? But it's like you're like, I can let that go because the humor's good, the music's good. I like the outrageous things that are happening. You know, this box with this bigger box on its back because she's afraid of a rat, and he's like, "Get this big bitch off of me," or 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 the soprano, or feeding these cows prune juice so they'd go to the bathroom. It's like, wow, this is interesting. This is kind of funny. It's sophomore humor, but I enjoy it. Um, that's kind of fun. But then you play some shit where it's like you play a bad 2D platformer, it's never gonna get any better. Like Bubsy is never gonna get any better.
I was about to say, please tell Bubsy 3D.
Oh, Bubsy 3D is like in 3D. Like it's bad. It's bad. I'm not gonna lie. It is bad, but it's not like.
Yeah.
It's bad. Like, here's the thing. Bubsy 3D is bad, but here's the thing. Before Bubsy 3D, there were nerve games that were trying to be in 3D. So it's like they didn't have a template to go off of. Not really.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm not saying it's a big pass, but you can understand why they are the way they are. But there's some shit. What?
What system was that game on anyway?
Bubsy 3D. It was on the PlayStation.
I was on the PlayStation.
It was on the PlayStation.
Yeah, I've seen images of that game, but yeah, I mean that was before that was before Super 64 Mario. Nobody really knew what to do with 3D yet.
You mean Super Mario 64?
Yeah, Super Mario 64.
I mean, it's like someone getting mad that the first car didn't have a radio or a brake. It's like, it's the first car. People hadn't figured this shit out yet. Now if you're talking like Crash Bandicoot after Mario 64 comes out, or Spyro the Dragon after Banjo-Kazooie comes out, okay then, yeah. If games are missing shit that should be there after the way has been shown already, okay then, now you have a valid complaint. But 2D platformers had been in the works for years. It's just some people didn't know how to make good ones. You can't cover a bad 2D platformer. There's just no way to do it. Like, if there's a bad 2D platformer, it's just bad.
Forever.
Yeah. Because you can say, well, it has a sense of humor. Yeah, but these controls are shit. And it's not getting any better. So yeah, that's the final one. Is there anything you guys would like to pimp out before we wrap things up?
There's a question I have. Why did Square and Enix merge again?
Because basically Squaresoft's Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within bombed, and they were losing money, and so they were like, "Well, shit, we gotta."
Oh, so Squaresoft was in trouble. I
Yes.
always thought it was Enix.
No, it was Squaresoft. Basically, they were losing money, and they were like, "Well, shit, what are we gonna do?" And basically, Enix was like, "Yeah, we'll buy you guys, but your financials are all fucked up." Because basically, Squaresoft got in bed with Sony, and I mean, as we've seen, when you get in bed with Sony, 9 times out of 10, it doesn't turn out well for you. And it didn't turn out well for them, so I'm not happy about it, but they failed. And basically, their ways of we're gonna get in bed. It was about the money, okay? Because Sony gave them a lot of money to jump ship from Nintendo, and they did. And not only did they do that, but then they did a lot of backroom deals in order to make sure that Nintendo lost a lot of third-party support in Japan, which is why even to this day Nintendo doesn't have a lot of third-party support in Japan.
Which is kind of BS.
Yeah, it's fucked up, but what are you gonna do, Like, here's the thing, okay? Yeah, I own some Nintendo stock. I don't own enough Nintendo stock for me to actually give a shit about whether or not they get third-party support, because clearly it made them stronger because Nintendo had to start making better games themselves, right? Like Nintendo, the highest-selling game on Nintendo's platform right now is Animal Crossing. Now, I didn't buy that game because I was like, it doesn't look interesting to me. But a lot of people did buy that game.
I mean, the thing is,
I was gonna say it's not that Nintendo has some great games, though. Some mileages may vary.
Yeah.
The thing is the thing about the JRPGs, the companies that still make games for consoles, they're gonna need to find somewhere else to go, because it seems like Sony has kind of abandoned their roots.
That's the thing, is that Sony basically gave up. Sony really propped up the JRPG market in Japan with the PS1 and the PS2. And then the PS3 came and they said, oh, well, the Western market doesn't really give a shit about JRPGs, so we don't need to subsidize that market anymore. And they don't. They do not subsidize JRPGs. So the JRPG people went to the Vita and the 3DS. Well, Nintendo dropped the 3DS. I mean, basically, they've essentially dropped the 3DS by this point. And Sony dropped the PSP and the Vita. So they really, why do you think so many JRPG franchises are now hitting PC?
Yeah.
For those people who are begging for Persona 5, I guarantee Persona 5 will probably hit the PC before it hits any other console.
Yeah. I guess they're making a decent amount of money on PC if they keep dumping their games on PC.
Well, considering that all these games were developed on PC, it probably doesn't take that much to get them to run on PC. And here's the thing, most RPGs aren't all that graphically intensive, unless you're talking like a Kingdom Hearts combat system covered, Final Fantasy VII Remake. But by and large, core RPGs aren't graphically intensive. And all you need is a decent port to PC if you're lucky. And you can make your money back.
A lot of those games can be played on a laptop and lower end graphics card.
Yeah, because they don't need the best graphics, unless you're talking about a marquee title like I said, Final Fantasy VII, which I don't like that game. It's Final Fantasy VII Remake. So, basically Square Enix, Squaresoft was basically in financial trouble because they got in bed with Sony and got an STD called Broketitude. And
some people switch to Sony.
Well, typically speaking, if you get in bed with Sony, you do not turn out well afterwards. Same thing with Microsoft. You look at the companies that really got in bed with Microsoft. Most of them are not doing well.
You end up with mushrooms between your legs, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, you do not wind up in good shape. So, hopefully they'll get their shit together. Probably not, because, it's... And so Enix bought them, and they also bought Eidos later on, which is why they have all those Eidos IPs like Tomb Raider, and they had Hitman and shit like that. So basically, at this point, Square Enix is essentially trying to reach that Western market. That's their big thing. They're like, we need to reach the Western market. Because here's the thing, Enix always had their money together, because Enix, their big thing was Dragon Quest, and they made bank with Dragon Quest in Japan. right? That was their big thing. It's like, we will make a ton of money in the homeland. And so they always had their shit together.
Yeah.
You know, it was Squaresoft that fucked up. So, you know. But anyway, that's the end of this video. If you want to reach the channel, you can reach me at MrRedFoxBSBuster@gmail.com or Twitter at Matthew Wesley at MrRedFox91. I will be changing this placard to a more accurate one so people can get the right information. That's the end of this video. Remember, rate, comment, share, subscribe.
Don't
yes.
forget-
And
What?
I may or may not be doing a live podcast tomorrow for the Escapist Indie Showcase tomorrow. It's at 12 Eastern Time. Yeah. And I definitely will be doing a live thing for the PC Game Show Saturday. I forget which time it is, but it's Saturday. So look forward to that. It's 13th. Do a live show tomorrow as well. It's going to be at noon, so if I'm awake, I'll take care of it. If not, well,
I'll be at work, so
I'll do afterward. I'll do after shit. But that's it. That's the end of the podcast. Remember, rate, comment, share, subscribe. Peace. Good night. You have all the information.
And have responsibly.
Yes, and wash your hands. Please wash your hands.
Yeah, I start